All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take on a Friday. Have no fear, by the way. It is a 3-day weekend, but we will be back on Tuesday. We'll be playing the best of the Vegas Take on Monday. We'll be right back at you on Tuesday. Going to be a nice little 3-day weekend. The guy we have with us on the line right now, he's known as Mr. X, the Hollywood conservative on this show. Explain quickly what that means. Well, he's a conservative. He lives in Hollywood. He is a longtime Hollywood producer. He doesn't give his real name out on the air in fear that he could lose his job, and he has to deal with a lot of liberals in the entertainment business in California, in Hollywood, and he joins us right now. Mr. X, is that a fair description?
That's a very fair description. I'm just waiting for you guys to start disguising my voice. I'm so concerned someone might recognize me.
Well, we're not doing that yet. Although this station does go into L.A.
Are you actually being serious about that?
I'm not,
tongue
man.
in cheek?
In the end, hopefully I have a non-distinct enough voice that nobody would notice.
I agree.
So have you had any incidents in the last week since last time we spoke that you would like to share with us when it comes to, liberals in Hollywood, or some things that you've heard or seen?
Yeah, in fact, I wrote a really cool script, and not to get even remotely into it, but it was, let me put it this way.
You can.
The lead character is gay, and the script is really cool. It's an amazing kind of true story, and I spoke to the producers, and I said, listen, I would love to direct this if you guys don't have anybody, and they said, oh, no, we are going to get a gay director for it.
That's interesting.
Okay, that's fine, and I can see that from the social justice perspective, but also it's so because I like women, I can't direct this movie? That's
Can you imagine if they went up to a Marty Scorsese, for example, and Scorsese wanted to do a movie and Leonardo DiCaprio was going to play this gay guy living in Hollywood, and Leo said, yeah, I want Scorsese, and then the people who are funding the movie went up to Scorsese and they said, yeah, you're a great director, we all know that, but you're not gay. We need a gay director. I mean, can you imagine if that happened?
No, I didn't know how to respond, honestly. I wanted to say, Chris Hemsworth, a really good-looking guy. He's got great abs. Is that enough?
You should have said,
right.
You should have said,
no, I'm actually very attracted to these 10 actors, and here are their attributes that I like the most.
No, you should have just lied and said you were bisexual.
No,
That's what you should have done.
That's true, actually. I'm bisexual. I've just never had any interactions with men.
Wait, so who directed Brokeback Mountain? Was it who directed it?
A straight man, but Hollywood's changed, guys. Really, it's kind of crazy. I watch a lot of films from the 90s and the early 2000s, and the industry's really different now.
Explain what you mean.
The social justice warriors have just really, truly infiltrated Hollywood. Almost every film I watch from the 90s and the early 2000s, I've become aware of certain lines or certain scenes that just simply wouldn't fly right now. Even in a movie like American Psycho, right? I watched that movie recently. It's one of my favorite movies. And it's clearly intended as a parody, but or not a parody, but a sort of highlighting a very crazy person. But people are so sensitive, but in a stupid way, where they can't tell if something is intended to either poke fun or just straight up, be opposed to something. A good example of this was in my last film. I had a line where a female character basically says, I'm going to tell someone that you raped me. And it's clearly intended to highlight her as not a great person. And one of my female producers said, maybe we should take that line out. We don't just saying the word rape in a movie, that's really triggering for people.
Right, but it's necessary for her character arc, right?
Exactly, 100%. And so I was at that point so wait a minute. So if I make a film about a criminal and, the Ted Bundy film, does that mean that I'm a proponent of Ted Bundy, that I support what he did? People just can't understand the fact that you still have to have a brain when you watch a Hollywood film, and that just because you show a man being violent toward women does not mean you advocate that. In a lot of cases, you're trying to show how bad that is.
Right.
So it's become very strange in this industry.
So 2 questions. Correct me if I'm wrong, but weren't Patrick Bateman and the Bateman from American Psycho and Rules of Attraction supposed to be brothers?
I think so, and I don't even know if I ever saw Rules of Attraction. American Psycho was one of my favorite movies.
It's an outstanding movie.
Book. But I think so.
And then the second question, do you think that Moonlight should have won an Oscar?
100% yes. That movie was amazing. I thought, my own personal sort of favorite, the Oscars, in my opinion, always get it wrong. They always give it to, most famously, when Shakespeare in Love won Best Picture, that's still one of the most egregious things that's ever happened. It was like Saving Private Ryan and a bunch of these classic films, and they always tend to screw it up. I didn't like La La Land. I thought that was garbage, but I thought Moonlight was...
Agree.
I actually loved La La Land.
I hated it.
Oh God, no, I don't like to just watch.
It's awful.
People.
It was just terrible. If you're just joining us, he is Mr. X, Hollywood conservative, longtime producer there in L.A., and he happens to be a Trump supporter. Okay, let's get down to politics now. This is making me sick talking about all these horrible movies.
Hey, I like it. I'm
rather
a fan.
Bang my head against the wall. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about, I guess you could call it breaking news, right? An astonishing photo has emerged. Donald Trump, Melania Trump, and Prince Andrew with disgraced billionaire Jeffrey Epstein. Now, it's back in the year 2000, but Donald Trump, this was at his Mar-a-Lago in Florida, and it shows a bunch of other celebrities there as well. And as you know, Donald Trump has been going after the Clintons and all these other people that were associated with Epstein. And before the year 2000, Donald Trump has said he disassociated himself with Epstein. But yet in this picture that was just put up, it's on the internet right now on Daily Mail, it shows Trump with Melania Trump, with Epstein, and also with Prince Andrew. So he's going to take a lot of flack for this too. So isn't this a double standard? And don't you think Donald Trump is nothing more than a horrible hypocrite for bringing the Clintons into this? What is your thoughts?
Sorry, man. I have to disagree wholeheartedly for a couple reasons. First of all, did you see the creepy painting of Bill Clinton on the wall?
I did, yes.
I've never seen anything like that. And second of all, if we want to talk about a murderous psychopath, well, let's talk about Hillary Clinton. And let's talk about the fact that my favorite news story of this past week, by the way, was the fact that the camera footage from outside Epstein's stall or cell was deemed unusable in court. That just made me cackle when I saw that. I was just like, of course it was. Like the fact, I will answer your question, but him bringing the Clintons into it, there's nothing wrong with that. They were clearly in bed, pun intended, with Epstein in every which way. Now, with that said, do I think that Trump was too? Probably. All these politicians are disgusting. They are. They all want these young girls, and they were all in there with Epstein, Prince Andrew, and Trump's comment, his famous comment about Epstein, is so disturbing to me. The one where he says he's a good guy, and he likes women usually on the younger side. What made him say that?
He said he likes younger women even more than I do.
Yeah, that's so disgusting. I feel like that's something that's just swept under the rug, because you have to think so here's Trump, and he's going to these parties with Epstein, and he's got these 16, 17-year-old girls, and he goes, oh, he likes young women. No, that's gross. That's not the way that this should be happening.
Do you think Hillary Clinton murdered Jeffrey Epstein? Be honest, yes or no?
Without a doubt.
Absolutely. Okay.
I think her list of her body count is pretty unbelievable.
Do you think Bill Clinton was wearing high heels and he was watching inside the jail cell? Yes or no? Answer the question.
Yes. No, I'm just kidding. Of course not. But I think that the Clintons are famous for erasing anyone that can potentially harm them.
I agree with that.
Hold on a second. Wait. Hold on. No. Well, wait a second. This guy just accused the Clintons of murder.
There's been several.
That is a serious accusation.
There's been several documentaries about it, Brian. Several documentaries.
You're saying that you believe Bill and Hillary Clinton have executed people and murdered people. That is with all due respect, that is a very serious accusation.
He's saying they've been accessories to murder on multiple
without
occasions.
Without a doubt. And again, I would have to, honestly, before I come on next time, I can send you about 30 articles of mysterious deaths, suicide, accidental deaths via a gun to the back of the head, and just
like Seth Rich.
Oh my God! There's literally dozens of them, and so. Sure, maybe not. Obviously, you can't accuse someone of something like that unless there's some, harder evidence. But the amount of coincidence with regard to people that had information on the Clintons or were enemies of the Clintons that mysteriously died. I mean, you can't. There comes a point where you have to be like, okay, like, and it's almost a meme at this point. Like, everybody knows it. Like, don't mess with the Clintons, or they'll probably have you erased. Like, as sad as it is, I mean, I do think that. To answer your original question, do I think Trump's a hypocrite for bringing the Clintons into it? Certainly. Yeah. Do I think he's wrong for doing so? No, because I think that they probably were responsible for Jeffrey Epstein's death.
You really believe that? You think the Clintons are responsible for the death?
The footage is gone. Both the guards fell asleep. They were supposed to check on them every 15 minutes. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. Have you seen the last season of Billions, Mr. X?
No, but I know what you're referring to.
That same dress that Bill Clinton was wearing is the same dress that they had Axe's assistant wear for that super secret meeting of all the highest levels of Wall Street.
Yeah, Mr. X, I know that you're a Trump supporter, so I want to ask you this question. Yesterday, Donald Trump said was attacking Puerto Rico, attacking the politicians, basically attacking Puerto Rico in general, and then he said that only 7 to 14 people had lost their lives in the last hurricane, and some estimates have upwards of 3,000 people that lost their lives. Do you think it is appropriate for the President of the United States to be attacking Puerto Rico when they are in fear of another disaster headed their way?
No, and I don't know why he said those things, and I don't always think that he thinks before saying a lot of the things that he said. I know that, and I'm actually probably wrong about that. There's always some, motive behind when Trump says things. And honestly, I would need to research what currently his issue is with Puerto Rico. But no, I mean, it's not. And my family's in Florida, and so I'm obviously concerned about the hurricane and, right, concerned about what may happen afterward. And 7 to 10 deaths I wonder if he's referring to like actual deaths by wind and rain, but I mean,
maybe he was referring to deaths. Maybe he was referring to deaths by the Clintons in the last 12 months.
That's possible too.
You know what? Honestly, I would not be surprised if they were responsible for
So I would imagine you don't agree.
That seems reasonable.
I would imagine you don't agree with the former Canadian Prime Minister. Her name is Kim Campbell, who said on Twitter yesterday she is rooting for Hurricane Dorian to directly hit Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago.
I mean, that's funny. Like, people, I just think, again, like, the left are so funny, man. Imagine if I made that comment about Obama. It's like suddenly I'm a racist pig, and it's funny and hilarious. But
well, I certainly wouldn't condone that language on either side. In fact, when we started this show, I talked about her comments and I said they were completely inappropriate. But I guess in the day and age of politics right now, it's almost like the norm to make a statement like that.
And there's no way that Trump doesn't have a $500 million insurance policy on that place.
Well, yeah, it's got nothing, but it's got nothing to do with the insurance policy. It's got everything to do with being inappropriate and saying something stupid. There are people that work at Mar-a-Lago that have nothing to do with politics or Donald Trump. We don't want anyone to get hurt. Listen, if you told me right now, if some murderer, owned some property, then I would probably say something like that. I don't know. For example, if O.J. Simpson owned Mar-a-Lago, then I would say the same thing.
O.J.'s innocent. Whoa, hold on a second here.
Do people, by the way,
that was the Clintons. We know that.
So if you're just joining us, it's Mr. X, our Hollywood conservative, who will not say his name on the show because he's a Trump supporter and a longtime Hollywood producer. So speaking of O.J. Simpson, that was obviously probably the biggest news story of the last 30 years. Do people still talk about O.J. in L.A.? Because as you know, he lives here in our backyard right here in Las Vegas.
Oh, people talk about him all the time, and it is absolutely unbelievable that a large portion of the African American community legitimately believe he's innocent to the point where they will become very upset with you if you indicate otherwise.
Well, I completely agree with them. The only thing they found was his DNA evidence on the scene of the crime. The only thing they found was the exact shoe size that he wears, footprints on the scene of the crime. The only thing they found was Ronald Goldman's DNA evidence inside his car. Oh, yeah, wait a second. It also turned out to be true that O.J. Simpson was a lifelong wife beater of Nicole Brown Simpson. But hey, other than that, I mean, there's really no evidence that links him to the crime, right?
And you're neglecting to mention that since that, he's been a perfect model citizen. He's never done anything else wrong. So,
right.
It makes sense. He was clearly innocent. So,
well, listen. The bottom line is people are stupid. That's just what it comes down to.
That you just put that could be the answer to all of your political debates and discussions and everything.
That's true.
Not only are the people who support the politicians stupid, but the politicians.
However, with that being said, idiots like Mark Furman, racists like Mark Furman, and I'm not so sure the LAPD did a great job of convicting OJ either. What are your thoughts on? What are your thoughts on the LAPD?
That one's tricky for me. There's a lot of good cops in this city, and it's unfortunate because I think in general cops do get kind of a bad rap, and I think that it's kind of the same as any other industry. Like there's a lot of good ones and a couple bad ones. And the bad ones are so bad, and because they're in a position where they can really abuse their power, they give the good ones a bad name. And I have a hard time saying bad things about cops, man. That is a tough job.
So do I. Yeah.
And the problem is, like, when you get – I think – let me put it this way. I think that the same number of cops are racist and evil as the same percentage of cops are racist, evil pricks as are in society in general.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's just tougher because they're in a position of power.
Yep.
And so when a cop is racist, he can actually go kill people legally.
Sure. No, I understand. I understand completely, and I agree with you wholeheartedly on that.
But LAPD, I think, is not one of the better police organizations overall in the country.
Little corrupt.
Their track record's not so great.
True.
I think they've probably gotten a little better. I think recently,
I would hope so.
But
I think it was Rodney King who said, "Can't we all just get along?" I think he's personally, the late Rodney King, very responsible for the improvements at LAPD. I wanted to ask you a little bit about the paparazzi. Wonderful guy. Let's talk a little bit about the paparazzi. I mean, we don't see a lot of this in Las Vegas, but in LA, it's amazing, and I think it's dangerous. Where if you're a celebrity, even a B-list celebrity, these members of the paparazzi will follow you in their car. They will stalk you. They will follow you, and as you're walking into a gas station or a supermarket, they will ask you the dumbest questions. Like, at least ask a good question. People say, "Hey, what do you think about Kim Kardashian's new baby? What do you think about that?" Or they'll say, "Hey, what do you think about Britney Spears, her new boob job?" And I'm like, don't you have anything better to ask, I don't know, Ronald Reagan's daughter? Like, I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying in general. Like I don't understand why they do what they do, and I understand it's a money thing, but do you think these laws are going to change? I think it's getting a little bit out of control.
I have a unique perspective on the paparazzi because I have a lot of friends who are famous, and I've spent a lot of time with them in public, and I've interacted with the paparazzi many, many times and with a lot of celebrities. Let me put it this way. The paparazzi, people complain about them, and they're insane. I mean, they invade people's privacy. But celebrities love it, man. I'm sorry. You come to a point of celebrity where it becomes obnoxious, but for the most part, most of my friends who are famous would kill to have the paparazzi come after them. And, like, that's the kind of part of the problem is, like, not only do the celebrities love it secretly, and they go, "Oh, God, it's the paparazzi again," and then they're kind of preening themselves on camera, but also just people want to watch it. And it's baffling to me. Like, I literally could care less. There's nothing I care less about.
Well, I like it, though. I like it when the celebrities get angry and they swear. Like, if you're following Mel Gibson, he might say an anti-Semitic remark. I want to see that.
Right.
So,
it depends how drunk he is.
I've met Mel. He's one of the nicest guys in Hollywood. But
how could he be one of the nicest guys and say all those awful things about African Americans and Jewish people, though? Come on.
I'm not sure, and I'm not going to defend Mel Gibson. Obviously, his dad was like a legitimate white supremacist. So I think there's some measure of probably misinformation that Mel was party to his entire life. And I'm just saying, I'm Jewish, and my interactions with him were always incredibly pleasant.
Wait a second, you're giving out who you are. You're telling me you're a producer in Hollywood and you're Jewish? Oh, that really narrows it down.
Right.
Boy.
There's only 10,000 of us out here.
He sticks out like a needle in the haystack there. Hey, so correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. X, but did you just say that some people, African Americans in L.A., when you say that you believe O.J. Simpson is not innocent and you are Caucasian, they automatically believe that you are racist?
Oh, absolutely, and they defend him, and they say, no, O.J.'s clearly, it was the police, and they were trying to vilify O.J., and he's innocent, and I just can only stare.
And despite all the evidence, that is simply because he is African American, and so are they.
Yeah, I mean, do you remember the trial? I mean, people were just, because that cop was clearly a racist pig, that meant that OJ was innocent. Like, that's why he got off, as we all know, that's so indicative of just society today.
And just to remind everybody, it was one of the wildest segments of radio I've ever done, where we had Ronald Goldman's sister on the line, Kim Goldman, and then we had O.J. Simpson's attorney, Malcolm, call in at the same time. That was just a wild segment that I will never forget. Anyway, Mr. X, I'm up against a hard break. We got to go, my friend. I look forward to catching up with you again next week, and please wear that MAGA hat proudly, my friend.
I absolutely am wearing it right now, and I will. Thanks,
all right,
guys.
sounds good.
I'm going to send you a MAGA tank, by the way.
Fair enough.
Yeah, please do.
All right, Mr.
guys.
X, Mr. Hollywood Conservative, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks
Take a
a lot,
quick
Mr.
break.
X.
Be back right after this. You're listening to the Vegas Take on the all-new 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDAWN.